Ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
Good evening from Fellowship Baptist Church. We're ready to broadcast our Wednesday night adult Bible lesson for you this evening. Thank you for joining in. We do have a few folks here with us in the overflow room. And for those of you that are here, there's two separate study sheets for tonight. One chapter that covers basically chapter 13. That one we will actually deal with the last page, the second page on the back, down at the bottom, and then we'll move on to the next sheet somewhere after the first part of our study tonight. So that's why there's two there. When I put this on screen, it doesn't always come out the same way as it does when we are teaching live only. Well, we've been faithfully making our way through the book of Revelation. And we are down to the last two or three verses of chapter 13. But before we actually get into that, let's just note that this is our 18th lesson here on Wednesday night, most all of which have been live streamed. We did start, I think, and we had a few before we end up having to go to the live stream. But anyway, we're on lesson 18. And just to get our bearings once again, the chronological structure in the book of Revelation revolves around the seven seals, the seven trumpets, and the seven bowls or vials of wrath. Now, we are between the sixth trumpet and the seventh, although the blue arrow pointing down there probably should be back to the left a little bit. We're literally between the two. The arrow is under the seven because we were indicating by that the seven bowls of wrath are actually the seventh trumpet. But before those seven bowls of wrath are described, we're in this parenthetical section, much like the one we had between the seals and the trumpets. And we are here describing various events, certain situations and personages and so forth that are, there in that time period, and at the same time, the actual point in time in which anything that transpires here in this parenthetical section, the actual point in time is not really delineated. But what we are looking at in chapters 13, 14, and on into chapter 15 and so on, would be things that would happen in the second half of the tribulation period. So we've come up to that point where the Antichrist has declared himself to be God. He has turned on the Jewish people. He has profaned the Jewish temple, the rebuilt temple. And as we learned last week, the false prophet has set up an image of him that appears to have life, and that image, of course, will be in the Jewish temple. And then the false prophet, through his miracles and all the other powers he'll have, will force everybody to worship the image of the beast. Okay, so that's where we are as far as getting our bearings once again. Now, just for a little bit of review from chapter 13 on, beginning at verse 11, here is the deceptive miracles and idolatrous worship that is propagated and instigated and enforced by the false prophet. He will perform many miracles, of which causing fire to fall from heaven is just one of the many miracles that he does. His miracles will serve the purpose of deceiving men and inducing them to worship the image of the beast. Here we saw that in verses 13 to 15 of chapter 13. And then he will give appearance of life and the ability to speak to the image there in the temple, as we've already mentioned, and force men to worship the image of the beast or be killed. And that is in verse 15. So let's go back to the scripture for a moment. And I'll read verse 15 again, and now just kind of set the context for the two verses we're going to look at tonight. And he hath power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. So, verse 16 now, and this is where we want to take up tonight as we change the screen. Verse 16 says, and that no man might buy or sell except he that hath the mark of the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. So, the false prophet makes it mandatory for everyone to have an identifying mark, what we call the mark of the beast being the Antichrist, the beast being the person behind the